Well, hello, and welcome to Intercultural Spark, that show about the spark inside you that drives you to spark change in the world through your business and life projects. And when I say you, I really mean you. You are more powerful than you could ever imagine. I'm your host, Deanna Shoss, and today's show is a little different. Today, we are featuring award winning volunteer coordinator and author, Nicole Smith, and Nicole is going to interview me today. So, as change makers in the world, and even as we drive success in our businesses, we're often working with volunteers, or certainly we're corralling support around our big ideas. So being able to receive feedback is critical to really be able to shine as your authentic self in the world. That's why Nicole created the suggestion box. It's called the suggestion box, navigating the good, the bad, and the say what. And that is Nicole's show about how to take the fear out of receiving feedback. And it explores how volunteer engagement professionals can respond to and manage the feedback that they get. So I'm so glad that I could help Nicole by sharing some feedback that was so heinous. She actually named this episode, I'm Not a Bad Person. So take a listen and you can hear what it is. And welcome to Intercultural Spark. All right, Nicole, it's all yours. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to this episode of From the Suggestion Box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what? Not letting the good stuff go to your head or the bad stuff going to your heart. Today, I have a very dear friend, and I know I say that all the time, but it's because I just have such amazing friends and people who are in my life. This is Miss Deanna Shoss, who is the CEO of Intercultural Talk Inc. Marketing. And she helps non-digital natives, AKA didn't grow up with technology, promote their businesses or life projects with digital, intercultural, and real life marketing with strategy and know-how to adapt to new communication technologies. Girl, I need you. So, Deanna writes for the National Diversity Council and is the tech columnist for Grand Magazine. She speaks Portuguese, Espanol, Francais, I don't even know, Portuguese, I don't know. She speaks Portuguese, Spanish, and French, and is a certified body pump instructor. Yes. And on top of all of that, Deanna has managed and inspired hundreds of volunteers and volunteer programs across her career, including the Green Team Chicago Park District, Airport Ambassadors Program at Chicago Department of Aviation, and event volunteers for First Night Evanston and the Hyde Park Jazz Festival. Deanna, I am so glad you are here. I'm so glad that you are here.
Thank you.
We're just going to dive right in, right?
So, okay, I'm ready.
Feedback,
I'm ready.
Right? Yes. Yes, I love it. Navigating feedback, the good, the bad, the say what? Which one do you want to start with? What is something that you want to tell us that, you know, just the type of feedback that you got? The ones that I really love are the ones that you didn't want to hear, but you needed it and you are so glad that you got it. But listen, I'll take any of it. Tell me, talk to me.
Okay. So see, I'm in public relations. I only want to tell you like all the really good things. No, they loved it, Nicole. There were no problems. And they thought that I was the most brilliant volunteer coordinator that ever existed. That was it. Are we done now? Okay. Thank you for being a guest on my show. All right.
You know what I want.
I know what you want. So I can't believe I'm doing this. I've never before publicly disclosed any of this. My palms are actually sweating a little bit. What I want to do, they are, because, so this is actually not from a this is actually not from a volunteer position. So this is actually from an organization that I worked with. And it was the first time that I got such comprehensive feedback on like me as a This was awful. It's fine now. I'm going to get to the good part. I'll tell you the awful part first. Okay. So it was it's called a 360. I don't know if anyone's ever done this. It's a, oh God, let me hide the logo. It's a
hide the logo
from anonymous company.
But like, is that like 100 pages thick? Like what is that?
I know there could not be that much wrong with me, right?
Gosh.
So what a 360 is though, it's actually, it's an amazing opportunity if you're ever at a company that you have the opportunity to do this, because what they do is they survey your staff. I was in a management position. So they survey your staff, your peers, your supervisors, and it was a not-for-profit. So I also did work with the board of directors and if you want to call them your community partners. So basically I had the opportunity. That's why it's called a 360. Right. You get an opportunity to like have everybody give feedback in terms of how you operate, how you are as a person. And I know, look at you, it's awful.
I'm sweating for you. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I know. So the good news was there were things that I'm very proud of that also came back as very positive. Things like, I scored really, and it's a scoring thing. Like, so on things like diversity, equity, inclusion, really high. Writing, really high. Like the things that I was proud of scored really high. And a lot of the things in terms of my public relationships, meaning like the people that I served with programs, a really high sense of great organization, really empowered, like, able to deliver programs and things like that. And my time is up. Are we done?
No, I think we are expecting just a little bit just for you.
Okay. This is really, okay. This is so, I can't believe I'm stuttering. I've actually never voiced this stuff out loud. My PR is trying to frame it. Let me just tell you and then give me a chance to like go, wait, you don't understand.
Okay.
So when I initially read it, where it starts going into like that constructive feedback section, there were some things that were actually pretty harsh. And some of it had to do, there were two things it had to do with. One was communication style.
Really?
And well, so here's what I found out that's so fascinating. There's this one quote. It's awful. I should probably read it to you. I shouldn't read it to you. It's terrible.
Don't say who said it, but
it doesn't know. Okay. Wait, you've known me for so long, so actually I feel safe doing this with you. So it said, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I can't believe I'm saying this on camera. Can be interpersonally corrosive during times of conflict.
Wow.
So, all right, so let me give some I know, you're like, what? For the record, Nicole and I have known each other for years, so you know me, but I actually do now understand the context of that comment. And it's really important. So of course, at the time when I saw that, I was like, they're not talking about me. Like, oh my God, I'm Deanna. I'm like this, but look, I'm Deanna.
Right, exactly.
How could they possibly be talking about me? So there's a couple things that I learned from this. And there were some other comments that corroborated the how I behave when I'm under stress.
Oh, okay.
So that was actually one thing that was fairly consistent, that I could be fine, but when I was under deadline, it was harder, like I was more stressed, and I constantly said, and she constantly seems to be under deadline. So it was, and part of what I realized is that though is actually how you schedule things. So there is a way to schedule things. I was under deadline because something was due the next day, but I'd known about it for enough time that I could have actually scheduled it longer. So it didn't always, so that's one thing that you learn. The second thing to learn is, if I tend to be more stressed under conflict, that you can also manage by like, well, then don't schedule high meaning conversations when you have a deadline. Feel comfortable saying like things, I would love to talk to you about that. Can we talk about it tomorrow? Let's schedule time. Mm-hmm. As opposed to diving in off the cuff where you end up being stressed about a deadline and then getting into a intense conversation. So those are things that you can manage. The thing that I learned, and this is so important for intercultural communications. So when we look at, and since this particular time in my life, I've gotten much more deeply into diversity, equity, and inclusion work, including the influence of culture on communication style. And what that has to do with is certain cultures, particularly like European, and it tends to align with white male. My son has actually told me that he thinks I'm actually a man because I'm so direct. So I know he says that. And I said, well, that should be a good thing in society. He goes, yeah, but not so much for a mom per se. But yeah, I'm like, thank you. But here's what he's, I know, here's blushing again. Here's what he's talking about though, is that if I'm a direct communicator, what that means is if I need this on, if I need this report by Thursday, I'm going to say to you, Nicole, I need the report by Thursday.
Right.
I don't mean anything by it. There's no emotion to it. I'm just telling you, I need this report by Thursday.
I'm the same way.
Okay, so the organization that I was in was a social service agency.
Okay.
And so in a social service agency, my joke used to be when people would say, how are you? And I'd say, I'm fine, I could complain, but nobody would listen. But at a social service agency, everybody would listen, they'd want to process it, and you'd never get any work done, okay? So if I'm saying, I need the report by Thursday, but I'm in an organization where I'm the only direct communicator and everyone else is more of an attached communicator.
Mm-hmm.
For me, task first. I want the task done, then we can worry about if we like each other. But if you're attached, okay, but actually we, believe it or not, are the minorities. It's the majority for the US American workplace because it aligns along like European, white male, that tends to be that communication style. The bulk of the world actually does relationship first. So that gives context to that comment. At the time, I thought, I'm an awful person.
Yeah.
How can they think I'm so bad? How can they think I'm so mean? And it was shocking to me because of like that idea of me not seeing myself that way.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it completely from a communication style point of view, it has to do more with I'm speaking directly. If I get high emotion when I'm under stress, I'm actually probably raising, like I'm doing right now, I'm raising my voice, I'm speaking loudly. It's going to come across to someone who's like, well, let's see how our relationship's doing first. If we like each other and trust each other, then I can work on that task. Can you imagine? There's just a complete disconnect between those two styles, and it's not gonna work.
That is. I love that. I love that because it just really puts into perspective, which is why I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
That a lot of times you can't always just take stuff right at face value. You have to kind of get an understanding of where is it coming from?
Mm-hmm.
Why was it said? Like really kind of investigate it instead of just the dart coming out and just striking you in the heart and you're like, oh my God, I am terrible, which is what we tend to do.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like, and we don't take into consideration, and I guess the best way you put it, we don't take into consideration the context from which it's coming. And to me, it's like that. It's that whole throwing the baby out with the bathwater, right? We just drink up the whole thing, dirty water, and all of it was like, as opposed to, okay, I hear what this person is saying, but where is it coming from? What is it? And learning, because that's one of the questions I would ask is, how do you learn like to not let it penetrate you so hard and like get to your heart and make you walk around feeling like you're a terrible person? Because that was like a very traumatic, like,
it's awful. It's awful. Yeah, it was, there's another one I may read before the end, which now when I read it the first time, I was like, well, that's me. Now I'm like, well, duh. Like, it's so, all right, I have to now that I said it. So this is like,
please.
you know who would be so proud of me right now is Brene Brown, because Brene Brown says that you should never be ashamed. You should, adapt and learn and change. So
yes.
Okay, this one I think is hilarious because I'm like, because I agree with it, which is, it says, this is so funny. It says, May express frustration with having to listen to others if she doesn't see the relevance of what the other person has to say. And I'm like, sorry. I'm like, wait, is that a compliment or a critique?
Right, you're like,
I'm not sure.
Wait, like, that's being mean because, like, Like, oh my, that
I
is
know, because I'm like, well, why would anybody?
That is fantastic. Oh my gosh.
Isn't that funny? Well, so I want to go back to you were saying, so how do you process it and do it? So
Yeah.
it would be the part that would actually be more embarrassing about all of this is if I told you that feedback was from like 5 years ago and I just reopened it. Like I was cleaning my basement and found it. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready now. Okay.
Well, you gave yourself some time. You gave some space between.
We don't have that kind of, yeah. I know. And we don't have that kind of time. You're managing volunteers in real time. You don't have 5 years to process because someone said something mean to you. Okay. Right. So,
oh my God.
So here's a couple things. So this is really important. And this is actually what is helpful to people. So one is, is self-awareness, understanding what your style is, and then being able to adapt it to the other person's style. Yeah. So here's the thing, in that situation where I'm the direct communicator, I'm the direct communicator in a sea of people that want to have that emotional context first, and I know that, then it's my responsibility to change my delivery to work with them. I need to stop before I say anything and say, hey, am I catching a bad time? I need to do the things like, which I'm not going to lie, I don't like doing them. I'm not going to lie. That sounds terrible, but let me put this in context because people are going to be like, why are we having coffee if you hate having coffee with people?
Right, right.
Do you know what I mean? But it's like I'm very purpose driven, but for a lot of people, having coffee and talking about nothing is really important because then, Nicole, when I'm in urgent mode and I do need something urgency, the relationships are established.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So it's on the onus of the person who has the self-awareness to modulate. But here's another one that's really important. And this gets to the heart of what you're saying.
Okay.
When you get feedback, so it's important, you know what, because this is so much in the news now with this conversation, when people go, oh, you're a racist. If you call someone a name, if you say, or another example is just your child, you're a bad child, you're a bad boy.
Yeah.
What the idea is, you don't label the person. You don't say you're a racist or you're bad. What you say is that thing that you said could be construed as racist, or that action that you just took is bad. Right. So it's separating the person from the action. The action that I did was bad. I'm not a bad person. Yeah. And what happens when we get feedback is that we hear it as, I'm a bad person and I can't change. Like, I can't change my core character. Or you can, but you know what I mean? People hear it that way, whereas really it's like, all right, let's look at what happened in this interaction, and I can change my behavior.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that. I love that so much, because not only the part about, because it's not only the giving of it, right? So when we're giving, because that was going to be one of the other questions I asked, is how do you?
Okay, and I do have something about that.
Yeah. So, but it helps that when you're giving that feedback, to give it a little bit differently, but then also with us who are getting so much of it all the time and from so many different areas coming at us at the same time, being able to filter through. I love that, separating the feedback from who you are as a person and really like that action that you did. That is huge. That is huge. And I think that is something that will really land with a lot of people, and understanding, because you are exactly right. You can take that and learn, and you can work on those actions. You can work on being a better communicator of whatever the feedback is, how you're doing it, when you're doing it, those types of things you can work on. It does not mean that intrinsically you are a terrible person. You are not a terrible person. Right. You are a manager of volunteers. There are no evil manager of volunteers. It's just not a thing. So
no, because it's their heart.
Yes.
You know, there's one other thing, and it's so funny. I forgot about this line till just now when we're talking. A lot of feedback from volunteers or from people outside of your volunteer program starts with, you should do this. You should do this.
That should word is like the S word to me. Like, just, I can't stand the should word.
But Nicole, here's your answer to that. Here's the answer to that every time. Oh my gosh, that is a great idea. why don't you, yeah, please, please. We would love to have a volunteer help develop that.
I'm writing it down.
So yeah, that is, oh my God. Just
Yes!
go in the mirror and practice it. This is the face. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
I love the face.
Yeah. Oh yeah, right? Did I catch the sincerity?
Right. I mean, and not to say that you would not be insincere, because of course you are.
Right, exactly. But usually it's something that's huge and you know that it's huge. And so I do that a lot because actually because look at it this way, in sincerity, if you said, that's a great idea, why don't you write it up? Why don't you write it up and I can share it with other people here? Or, why don't you get started on it? Here's a way to get started on that.
Yeah.
When you do that, it puts it back into that person's hands. And honestly, if that volunteer does have the initiative and the ability to write up something that would be a huge amount of work, but they're able to figure out a way to do it and manage the volunteers to get it done, you've just actually expanded what you can do with that response.
Yes.
Because otherwise you have that person going, oh, she hated my idea. I wanted to do this great thing. And she said no. And, and that's always a weird dynamic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I love, this is just so much good stuff right now. Like, whew, okay. All right. Oh, okay. I'm still like processing. Give me a minute. I'm like processing.
Okay. I know, because I got more.
Keep going. Keep going.
So, well, okay. So, we had talked about then how you give feedback.
Yeah.
I also learned something really important from doing it wrong. Okay. And what I did wrong was it was someone that I was working with and I was giving some feedback that was negative, which I hate doing. Like that's a skill that I'm working on getting better. It's hard for me to do. I need to myself separate that I'm not, criticizing the person, something specific. But what happened was I was giving someone negative feedback on a specific project or thing that they had done. And I saw that they were kind of being hurt by it. And I said, oh my gosh, wait, this is in the context of, you're fabulous. Oh my God, I love everything that you do. You're doing a fabulous job. And she goes, you could have started with the headline. Right? So the headline was almost like the news story. You could have started with the lead then. The lead was, you're fabulous. This is not a big deal. I love everything that you're doing, but here's what happened. Here's why it's a problem. Here's the implications for it, and here's how you can do it better next time.
So I have a question, just to be like devil's advocate.
Yeah.
What if then the person is like,
okay,
well, because maybe they get that feeling that they know it's going to be negative feedback, and you're starting off with all this good stuff, and they're sitting there like they can't even hear it because they're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like, what do you do about that?
Mm-hmm.
Am I complicating?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't overdo it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't overdo it. I wouldn't overdo the whole right. Red and and your hair looks good today, and it's so giving the context or. It's giving the context. That's so funny. So it's setting the context, and if you wanted, you could even give it as a specific thing, like this project that you did for, maybe it was a different project. On the project you did for this part, this was really good because ABC. I did want to talk to you about this other one, and know ahead of time. There's a whole theory, it's all those things on the difficult conversations. There's an arc for difficult conversations. There's the what if, like asking yourself why, because sometimes when we're afraid to give feedback, we think through whys. Why don't I want to give them this feedback? Well, they're going to get mad and then they're going to hate me.
Right.
Why? Well, then they're going to quit. Why? Then I won't have a volunteer for this. Like you think through these things, and by the time you get to the end, you're like, all right, they're not going to quit. They love what they do. I love what they're doing.
Right.
But we need this one action to be changed.
Yeah.
I think that kind of only happens with practice.
Absolutely.
In terms of giving feedback. What is worse, and I know this from, oh God, I'm so glad. This is really great, Nicole. I appreciate you having me on. Like, I'm gonna have to have a drink after this. Sorry. because now I'm like, most of the things, unfortunately, most of the lessons that I've learned that I can share with you with such confidence. And if it wasn't you, I would only share with you with confidence and not the part where I screwed it up. You know, most of the stuff you learn by goofing it up. And the part that I'm getting at is there's two things, thank you, that I proudly have done that are terrible. And they both stem from avoiding conflict. Something happens that's not good. I'm uncomfortable talking to the person. Actually, government does this. Chicago city government does this all the time. So then they pass a law so that all citizens have to do ethics training because one alderman was unethical.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? No, punish the one alderman.
Yeah.
Like we don't need the expense of every single city employee doing ethics training. Like, just get rid of the one alderman.
Yeah.
But government does that a lot, as do I. Maybe I should be maybe I'm headed for a career in politics.
Maybe.
So that's one thing. Oh my God. So that's one thing I've done that don't do that, because your other employees will know that you've done that, and they're gonna be upset. Honestly, they're gonna lose respect for you.
Right.
If they know, because they know who the problem employee or volunteer was, if there was one. They know.
Especially when they know and when everybody knows, and it's like, okay, but we're gonna do this for everybody. It's just like, oh, come on. Yeah.
Right. They totally know. And they're like, you're supposed to be the boss. Being the boss and a volunteer coordinator, you're nice. You are nice, but you're still, and even though they're volunteers, you're still the boss, and there's still expectations for what volunteers need to do.
Right.
So the second thing with avoidance, so one is avoidance by making a blanket policy for everyone. But the other thing that happens, if there's a repeated behavior that's not appropriate, and you don't address it, you're a volunteer supervisor, you have a boss, you have other people. It's either going to get indoctrinated because other volunteers will go, oh, I didn't know that we could, eat all the candy that we're giving out and not give any to the people. Yes. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, that's a silly one.
True. It is
but
so true.
So it's important and usually if you bring it up earlier, it's an easier conversation than if you put things off. So.
Absolutely. I remember there was a particular volunteer that I had.
Finally, you're going to share something. All right, where's my popcorn? Okay.
Get your popcorn out, and I'll be drinking with you at this point. Oh my gosh! But there was a situation that had happened, and I chose just to not address it, and I was just like, well, it will go away. Well, it didn't go away in the most awkward of situations.
Oh no.
And my assistant, she was kind of before, she was like, Nicole, you should probably really you might want to call her or whatever. And I was like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then this situation happened, and it was just and I looked at my assistant, and I was like, I'll never, not ever listen to you ever again, because I just picked up the phone and had a phone call with her, it would have avoided this hugely awkward situation with outside vendors. It was mortifying. And I just was like, this all could have been avoided had I just picked up the phone and not tried to avoid the conflict.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, lesson learned. Yikes. Yeah, for sure. Man, this has just been amazing. Oh, this has been so great. My soul is being fed.
Oh, that's good.
I'm loving it. So the last question that I have for you then, and this is just in general, it could be about anything, I just to ask people. What has been your greatest accomplishment in life, and why?
So you had sent the question earlier, and you had asked what was your greatest volunteer. I did put it in the context of volunteering.
Okay.
So when you had talked about this, and so and so I want to show you. This was I was 7 and crying, but hold on a second. Let me grab this. This is from. So one of the things I did at the Department of Aviation Can you see it? This is actually from the whole local chapter of the Tuskegee Airmen. And every year we did an essay contest, and it was African-American pioneers in aviation.
Okay.
And so the Tuskegee Airmen got involved, and through my work on like education programs, art programs, and volunteers, I arranged buses to bring kids for the fly-ins where they could get their first flight, and worked a lot on the essay contest and all these things. And they surprised me, like, just for, I think they said, like, I ran tight missions, and it was, it was so amazing to me that a group of people who had just served our country and had done such great things, and of course I'm getting emotional. I'm also Jewish. In World War II, they were like the Jews were freed, and so it was just that moment of being honored by them was so meaningful to me. I still say that it was because I was pregnant that I cried, but that was a big deal. That was a big deal for being recognized for that in that way by the Tuskegee Airmen, and just the wonderful group of men that were involved in the local chapter.
That is amazing.
That was cool.
That is so amazing. That is so amazing. Well, Deanna, thank you again so much. This has been amazing. I haven't laughed this hard in a really, really long time. So, and that is what I wanted.
I can't believe how much I shared. Oh my gosh.
Love it. I love it. But that's exactly what I wanted this to be about. Is I wanted this to be us to be able to look at this and kind of either laugh at ourselves and learn from it, and just kind of take that to help.
Or laugh at me.
Yeah. No, not at all. We're not laughing. With you. All right, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for asking me. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Oh my gosh. My heart is warmed. Thank you all so much for joining us. And I'm just saying goodbye one more time from the suggestion box, navigating feedback, the good, the bad, and the say what. Not letting the good stuff go to your heart, and not letting, did I say heart? Not letting the good stuff go to your head and the bad stuff go to your heart. For that, I'm signing off. Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.